Search is over, now welcome to First Mint. Looking for NFT content, look no further cause this is it. From Top Shot to blockchain, they got the data chops, analysis, and pack drops, the show's equator hot. LG and Phil D, the best amongst others. Best brothers that happen to ball since the Ball brothers. So settle in cause it's time for the best show. Ayo Quad, who we reppin'? First Mint. Let's go.
Whoa!
Hey,
Wow.
I'm gonna go right into it because we were having an enraged discussion right before half an hour before recording. We're just like ridiculous recording. So I'm just gonna go right into like a raw stream of thoughts. Okay, Phil, here's a chart of all-time sales on Flow. Okay, here's a chart. Okay, and you see Top Shot here at $1 billion, and this is secondary sales. Top Shot's done $1 billion. We all know that. It's slowed down. All Day has done 138 million, which is that's pretty fantastic. Strike is third at almost 21 million. Fan Craze, which is cricket. Phil, you should really get into Fan Craze, okay? Cricket thing. At 16 million, which is they launched way later after the rest of that stuff. So that's pretty good. And the unique buyers is pretty good for Fan Craze at 50,000. Okay, these are the clear like top four, right? And these are all large IPs, right? These are all actual leagues that were licensed, and they need to make this money to fulfill contract requirements, all this kind of stuff. So this is fine. Number 5 is Ballerz, okay? Wow. At 13 million. And then there's nothing even close after that, right? So it's Top Shot, $1 billion, right? All Day, 138 million. And then Strike at 21 million, Fan Craze 16, and Ballerz 13. The next closest ever on Flow is La Liga at 4. And then it's like Flow Vitar and Dimension X at like a couple, like 1 or 2, 3 million, right? So it's
Mafia. Oh, wow.
Yeah, DGD Mafia. Who knows what happened to that,
man?
Anyways, what I'm saying is that Ballerz, I mean, this is what we're talking about before the show. So to give people context, we're just talking about Ballerz because out there, you know, Phil, you were saying there's still a lot of love for Ballerz. Ballerz is the clear, like, most loved NFT on Flow all time that doesn't belong to like a league, that it's its own individual intellectual property. That's its own IP. Like you could do anything with it, right? And yet it's pretty dead, right?
What's the floor at right now? I haven't looked in a really long time. Like if I wanted to say, hey, I'm getting back into Ballerz right now, and I wanted to go on the marketplace and buy the cheapest one, is it like under $100?
How do you go on?
It's got to be. There's no way it's above $100 unless something happened recently.
What do you think it is?
I have the Ballerz bot on my Twitter, and that thing has not gone off in maybe like 3 months or more.
$40.
$40. Wow. Okay.
From a peak, what was the peak? 1,800 for the floor?
Yeah, 1,800.
Well, that's unfair. I'll say that like all NFTs, it's ridiculous. Like every single NFT from the bull run has the same story, that it's like floor compared to now, all-time high. It doesn't necessarily paint the full picture. You know what I mean? And they sold these for $200. They didn't sell them for $1,800. So they sold them at $200. So it's down 5x from the sale price, and however 99% or whatever that is from the all-time high.
I've got to look something up. I have to go back. I just want to throw it back to something. I've got to look up. Do you remember that top sale, like the number one list or the number one ranked Ballerz that a player from the NBA 2K League owned? His name was Zay Bucks. Do you remember that?
Sold it to Wade's.
And he sold it to Wade's. And do you know how much he sold it for?
Wasn't $100,000?
I'll look it up right now because I know that I tweeted about it, so it's got to be in there somewhere.
It was $100,000. And Wade's, if you guys remember, way back in the Top Shot ball run, Wade's had Top Shot Hour, right? And now runs Squanchland, which is kind of a community of let's call them NFT sharps that do really well and do some good collabs that I'm lucky to be part of. And Wade's is kind of the ringleader of that, and he buys and holds really big things. You know what I mean? He still plays Zed Run. Like that's how much he believes in a lot of this stuff.
That's wild.
Him buying that, that's a lot of money. And also like that was a really good indicator that this thing had legs. And I think a lot of people on Flow when this came out were like, okay, we finally have our own thing. You know what I mean? Because everything else they had to rely Like they couldn't rely on community for price to stabilize or for fun things to happen, because I think by that point people realized that Top Shot was going to keep flooding the market with all this new stuff, and that's how the leagues were going to go. But Ballerz is like, well, that's the thing that can kind of be its own thing where the community can kind of dictate what happens to it. But now it's dead.
I want you to pull up the tweet, LG. Are you on Twitter right now? I want to show the people. I didn't send it to you, but you can look it up. I'll tell you what to search on Twitter. If you go in the little search box, it comes up as the first thing.
Yeah.
So if you write Zaybucks, which is Zaybucks, and then you write Ballerz, like don't tag his username, just write Zaybucks Ballerz. Yeah. It should be my tweet that you see.
Tweet. Okay, here we go.
So let's see what day that was. That was on February 7th, 2022.
Yeah,
coming from 2 years. In a few months. The number one skill ranked baller, which had been purchased for $200 USD, was sold for $100,000 USD. 2 Wades, like you said. This wasn't even the rarest ballers. It was the trait rank was like, it says it there, was 557th. So it wasn't like the rarest one or anything like that. But with the assumption that the game was coming out, the game that they called, I don't know what the hell they called it, but the game that was supposed to be,
I don't know, not hardcore, but
it wasn't hardcore, it was something else. Yeah. But whatever game was supposed to be coming, this was bought with the assumption that this would be the most valuable piece of the collection, because he was the number one skilled baller, right? And when you look back and you see that the floor now is $40 USD, and this thing sold for $100,000 USD, a lot of people actually questioned Zaybucks when he did this. And they're like, why would you do this? And he actually pulled the perfect exit that so many people wish they had pulled with so many projects, right?
Yeah.
It's hard to let go of something that is so valuable. Yeah. And I was on the same wavelength. I'm like, man, he probably should have waited just a little bit until we find out what this game's all about. And then he can probably even double that.
Yeah.
But you know what? Looking back, I can guarantee you that 95% of people wish they had done this exact move with everything they had. And I'm sure some people had some really big ticket items. And I know I didn't let go of my ballers. I waited till it went way down to pretty much nothing when I had huge offers, not like that, but I had huge offers at the beginning there for my alien baller. People want to pay 20 grand for it. I'm like, nope, this thing's going to 500 grand. Right.
Well, it's hard for us to do that also, even if you really wanted to being at the center of it kind of as well.
We hyped it up so much at the time. It was like,
moral standpoint, it's kind of like, it's like you can't really
hey everyone, get into Ballerz.
Great project, and then be like, all right, let's all get rid of it. It's not
a little tougher in our position for sure. But
it's just something you should be conscious of if you're in our position, you're going to talk about projects. I don't really know if we have that position anymore. But at the time we did.
Definitely not. Maybe a little bit. But I will say this, because we had this discussion on the off air before coming on. And I know people laugh at this, but there was a comment made by several members of the community when Ballerz first started that said that Ballerz was the Bored Apes of the Flow ecosystem. And people laughed at that. They're like, look at these things. You will never be Bored Apes. The Bored Apes community is like, nope, you're never going to come close to us. But it was never about the battle between the two. I think it was more in the sense of the community that was built and the hype that was built, like you said, around a Flow project that had no ties to a professional sports league for the first time. The hype around the community and the community that was built at the time, and that still exists now, but it's not the same, obviously, was very much so kind of like the Bored Apes community and what we had known, right? Again, $200 US to $100,000 US sale. That's a big sale there for someone who only paid 200 US, right? And the community became, we talk about this all the time, but there was an RDS, which is the equivalent of TSN in Canada and in English, which is the equivalent of ESPN for you Americans. That's our ESPN. It's called TSN. There was even an anchor or a basketball, specialist that went on the air on RDS, the ESPN of French people in Canada, and wore his Ballerz hoodie with his Ballerz on it because it was such a big deal at the time, right? And people were like, dude, what is that, right? So it was a big deal. Like, I think the comparison was fair at the time, right?
Well, absolutely. And that's what I mean is it was a big deal, and it was beyond any of like, oh, I really believe in Top Shot or All Day or Strike or any of that kind of stuff. It was like, no, it doesn't matter what happens to those and how much they would supply them or how the market comes and goes. It was like, this is its own thing. So it was like, it was able to latch into like the identity part of like NFTs, right? So I think that's why it was compared to Bored Apes. Not that it would rise to a $500,000 peak, but just that it's like, well, no, this is something that people can really become a part of, and feel really good about. And it was mismanaged. You can't look at floor price as necessarily indicator of performance, because everything is down like that, even stuff that does well. But even something like apes, it's like people still love their apes. You know what I mean? People haven't gotten mad and like Yuga doesn't know what the fuck they're doing. Like Yuga currently runs literally like 3 different video games, all of which were like derived from having owned these assets, and they're building all this stuff, and they hired the COO of Activision to run their business. You know what I mean? It's like every day I play Yuga games. It's like that's, you know, the floor price for something like apes is down, yes, but it's like it has still like that there's an actual business there that they built. Ballerz had all this promise. Ballerz has nothing's been built, right? There was a league, but that was like a simulation, and there's a million different simulation games out there, so nothing's actually
that's okay. So let me throw this at you. If Yuga Labs at some point early on purchases Ballerz out of nowhere, okay, no, let's just say, okay, where are we at with Ballerz? Where the hell are we at with Ballerz right now? And I'm not talking about floor prices. Like, do we see a Ballerz fest every year where, you know, all these rappers and NBA players come out and perform and
hold on. Well, okay. I mean, even that. What did people love about Ballerz? Besides the fact that it was like, okay, we were okay, completely erase the part where they bought it for $200 and it mooned up $1,800, which is a fantastic profit if they took it. Ignore the actual rise in price. There was a vibe. Like what was cool about Ballerz, just to go back, when we were doing Flow Fest, right? Because we worked with Flow and Dumbo and everybody to do Flow Fest, which was like the big coming out party for Flow. Because up until that point, Flow had like nothing on it. It was just like there's Top Shot, and then there's like the Evolution by Ben Monroe, and then Morrow, and then there's like nothing, right? And then Flow Fest was like, okay, it's gonna be the coming out party of Flow. There's going to be these flow packs that are each full with random NFTs, which I still think was a great idea. And they're all projects on Flow, including like Record Shop and those weird sexy cats and like all that different shit. They're ram-packed with them. And then you're going to give them to people. They're going to win them, and then they'll get to discover new NFTs. I still think that now that's still a great idea. And one of the things that was loaded in these packs were $200 or $100. And as soon as people started seeing these, they started DMing me because they didn't know who else to ask. And they're like, yo, what are these Ballerz? And this is like weeks before the launch date, before the sale date of Ballerz. They were like, what are these Ballerz? These look sick. So immediately, just the art alone of Ballerz had this whole vibe to it, right? And then you and I hosted the actual drop with the guys from Gaia, right? And they're seats. They sold out not immediately. Like you could buy up to 5 or 10 if you wanted. You know, I think there was an allow list where you could buy 5 or something like that. It was like, it wasn't like instant gas war or anything like that. It took a little bit of time to sell out, and the website was a little janky. But then there was a month and a half until the marketplace opened. And when the marketplace opened, everybody's like, what's this going to open at? I think they opened at 1,000 each. And then over a couple of weeks, they rose to 1,800. All the spaces where you changed your PFP to a Ballerz, and so did George Reister, and like this whole vibe. So I think despite the price rising, which was fun, there was already like an energy to it that people felt prior. So
it was also an extension to
what did people love about it? What do people still love about it? Like, do people really love the art? Like, is it like, I still see a lot of, it's like, what is it that's really important?
I don't know, because for me it was just, again, a big hype thing. I did like the art. I did love the fact that they started releasing the names of the cities these players would belong to before you could even get them, which was really cool, because you were like, you know what? I'm from that city. I want to get some guys from that city. And it kind of started a whole community thing like that. Like the Twitter pages were coming up everywhere, right? For each team. Like people were building communities before they even owned any of these things. And, you know, it was, I hate to say it, but it was a sense of belonging for those who missed out on the Bored Apes and some of these other massive PFP projects. It was a way in for the non-ETH crowd, let's say. Okay. It was the first time you were able to be part of something like this without using or even trying to figure out how to use ETH, like me, who had no clue how to even do any of that for like a year and a half. This was the way in to do it, because I had skipped so many other things for the simple fact that I didn't know how to use ETH and maneuver all these gas and all this stuff like that. that for me, it was easy. Now you have to keep in mind that the Ballerz crowd also was an extension of the Top Shot crowd because it was basketball, right? And if you ask some of the biggest names in the NFT space, I'll give you an example. Thread Guy, who is still soaring and taking off by the day, this guy with what he's doing. Okay. He started, he was on a show the other day and he said, I simply started with physical cards. I heard about Top Shot and I'm like, oh, cool. Let me try Top Shot. Do you know what I'm saying? Like that's where it started for some of the biggest names in the space is Top Shot.
Oh, of course. Yeah. But even in that ecosystem, because the other thing too with that era of FlowFest is that was the coming out. There goes my camera again. That was the coming out of like Flow PFPs because there weren't any, right? There was one guy, there was like, Moment Nerd who had done the, put in your Top Shot moment and it gives you a little crest or whatever. And that's your PFP. There's no association. So in that fall, Ballerz came out as kind of like the leader. Hoodlums came out as the original first PFP on Flow kind of thing. And those were like more cool, done by some hoodlum, it's like an actual artist with an Amazon show. It's more of a vibe, like, sneaker culture kind of thing. So that was cool as well, if that was your flavor. That project also under a lot of heat lately, people wondering where the founder, where the team is, because not much has been heard. And then there are all these other ones, like Goated Goats and DGG Mafia that we worked with, and like all these other kind of ones that came out. But everybody was like, okay, Flow PFPs, that's a thing. Let's try and get it out there. But then the leader and all that, Ballerz, just kind of never went anywhere. And it's too bad. You know what I mean? Because it just didn't like. It's just like the Ballerz doesn't like do anything. You know what I mean? They did. We had a lot of friends work there, right? A lot of really passionate friends.
Yeah.
Ballerz.
A lot came and went for sure.
Came and went and tried to do cool stuff. The last major marketing effort I saw was they had a show with Rosgold, where she would interview different people in the community. It's like Ballerz Hour kind of thing. But it was just not. It just seemed like it was. It felt like it was a lot of work to get it done. And probably a little more than worth the price. Not that Ross is not worth the price, but you know what I mean? It was just like, this is a vibes thing. You don't need to do this polished show. Like it just host the Twitter spaces every night. That's all you needed for Ballerz, where people yell Ballerz, and like that's already doing more. But you're right. But come back to Thread Guy, who now is one of the most popular influencers in the whole space.
Crazy.
Like a lot of people, Top Shot first, but he also, the reason his name is Thread Guy is he started writing threads, right? And I messaged him way back when he started writing threads, which was like the end of December 2021. And one of his first threads was about hoodlums and why hoodlums is cool.
Really?
And
I didn't know
because he really loved I guess like he was into the Flow ecosystem and all these new things coming out. Like I didn't know he did that. I have a DM with him from January 4th, 2022, where I'm like, hey, man, you're doing a great job with your content. And he's like, dude, I appreciate it, especially coming from you, because, I was a much bigger name than he was at the time, which is crazy. Now Thread Guy is like the guy,
It's true.
But he's called Thread Guy because he used to write threads. And one of the first ones he wrote was about Hoodlum, and he wrote about Top Shot, and maybe he wrote about Ballerz too. But that's how, like, that kind of stuff was keeping Flow collections like relevant in the space as the space had expanded to PFPs and done all this other stuff on ETH, right? So it's Ballerz was kind of like one of the things kind of getting, helping to push it through all that noise. And it's too bad, but I do feel like it would still have legs. I feel like you could bring it back.
I feel like it still has legs, because if you go in the Discord, okay, it's not very active.
Yeah.
But you still have a ton of people on Twitter or wherever that are using the Ballerz, their former Ballerz or their current Ballerz, as their PFP, which is like kind of when you give up on something, you stop doing that. But I think it goes to show how much people related to some of these the artwork, because even look at Roz. She was able to grab one that looked exactly like her, what you know what I mean? Like what she thought looked like her. Or even Ange, our good friend Ange, was able to grab one that was exactly how she identified in this space, right? And she kept it for a very long time. And I could tell you that I only knew Ange as her Ballerz PFP, really. Like, we know what she really looks like, but that became her identity. My green alien was like everywhere. Someone even made one with a Santa hat, to the point where somebody even created like that meme where Roham's face comes into my green baller. Like, it was wild. But you're right. Like, something sitting at $40 like that, I feel like it's a project that's kind of just sitting there right now.
Mhm.
And yeah, you don't ever need to have a simulation game. Like, who cares about that? Like, seriously, who cares, right? Because people were into Bored Apes before they brought in all these games. People just enjoy the games now because they're like, wow, this is really dope, right? And it kind of surprised everybody. They didn't talk about it forever and be like, or to my knowledge anyways, they didn't talk about it for years and be like, oh, we got this amazing game coming. It kind of just popped out and was like, wow, this is pretty dope. But yeah, it's interesting to follow, to be honest with you. I had no idea the price was that low. And I don't know. I feel like there's a lot of love for Ballerz out
It
there
has
still.
it has 10% listed. There's 1,056 of them listed out of 10,000.
Wow. Okay. How many unique holders of the collection? Because I know a lot of people own a lot of Ballerz.
Does it show you that on the site?
I don't know. I don't even know where to look this stuff up.
They don't have any.
You're the expert.
Like that. Oh no, you're right. Oh wait. 3,300 unique owners.
Wow.
Here.
Okay. So people
10.9% listed. 3,300 unique owners out of 10,000. So that is pretty high, honestly. 3,300.
It is pretty high for something where people have completely given up and probably just trying to cut their losses. I would figure that there'd be way less than that in terms of how many people still have. That's a lot of people, man. That shows you the community. Okay, large scale. It's not a huge community. If it's 3,000 people that still own one, but I still consider myself part of the community. I don't own one anymore. I was there for that run. So were so many people, and so many people at that price, I'm sure, would get back into it in a heartbeat if there was a reason to.
Of course.
But you can only run, and this is not a shot at Durf by any means, because he's still doing stuff for Ballerz. And we met Durf.
He's still active.
He is. Yeah, he is, man. He's the only one tweeting from in that Discord ever, or sending messages. And we met Durf Punk, I think is his full name, in New York City when we went there. He was at our picnic, actually. He came to our picnic. It's the first place I met him, with our good friend Andrew, Cold Brew. And Durf is actually still going. And again, not a shot at Durf, but you can only do so many poker tournaments and things like that, which I enjoyed, to be honest with you. But those are not things that'll keep kind of the needle moving. Those are fun, but even me, who love doing those things, I stopped. I'm like, I don't really care anymore. Do you know what I mean? So it'd be interesting to see what Ballerz could do under proper leadership. Right.
Well, it's not just like those are all good community things, and if you're going to run like a Discord community, those are all very standard things. Especially now in the bear market, it's like you keep it active, you keep something fun for the people that are hardcore. But you're right, it's like there has to be actual movement on it as a brand, and I think that's what's been missing. I'd really like. So I've expressed this to you a few times, and I've like maybe briefly thrown it out there on the podcast, and I'm going to say this, and I'm saying this, jumping without a parachute here, because I have zero plan for how it would actually get done. I would really love to buy the Ballerz collection and do something. And again, I don't have any experience running an actual successful like NFT PFP project, right? We have First Mint Day 1, which is great, has held its mint price, but it's limited. There's only 500 of them. Expectations these days are low. We have a great community, and that's kind of like, that's the utility. We get allow lists sometimes, which has been good. We got a lot of really good ones. But otherwise it's been very standard. We're just a community, right? And we've done Media Pass, which is fun and creative, but again, is not this huge driver of sales. So I don't have that much experience actually like running a fun brand, but Phil, like at the end of the day, it's like, we and you specifically, like we're such part of that vibe, kind of central to it. That we have to admit that some people liked being part of it also because we were part of it.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
And I feel like there's still legs there, and it doesn't mean like I wouldn't want to buy it and be like, all right, let's get that floor price back to $1,800. Like that's not like if we bought the collection, we're running the collection, it's stayed at $40. I don't care. I would just want to make it interesting and fun. And even like, again, I was telling you this before we started recording, I don't know how many people pay attention to Pudgy Penguins. And again, I'm not as skilled as Luca Netz, who's the person who currently runs Pudgy Penguins. I don't have the e-commerce skills that he has, and not necessarily as good a marketer. But what he did is Pudgy Penguins launched during the bull run, and they were really cute. And they had this big run up, and then Cole, who's the guy running it, is kind of like this rugger kind of guy. He didn't want to run it anymore. Pudgy Penguins kind of crashed. And this guy, Luca Netz, who was like a Shopify prodigy, basically, he came in and he bought it for like $4 million. He's like, I'm going to buy Pudgy Penguins from you. And he bought the IP, and then he started like a whole social media brand with it, where it's like, if you go to the Pudgy Penguins Instagram, it has like 150,000 followers or something like that, or maybe more, maybe a couple million. And it's all like, it uses the IP. It's all these really like cutesy messages and GIFs and stuff like that. And it's good. Like, it's just good base Instagram content. And he's built a brand with that. And then now he has started to actually release physicals of Pudgy Penguins. They are very cute. They're very cute as a plushie. Like if you're walking through Walmart with your 6-year-old and you're looking at the plushie animals or whatever, Pudgy Penguins might be one that they really want. You know what I mean? It holds up. But he started selling those, and some of them come with NFTs where you scan it, it gives you an NFT. So he's actually built like a retail business with this, an e-commerce business with this, and they've done over like $6 million in sales. I'm not saying that that's the game plan. If I could buy Ballerz, is to just be like, okay, let's sell these as physicals. But I think to expand the IP is somewhere where you could start. And it's something where it's like, okay, well, let's start writing stories. Let's start writing comics. Let's start making weird little action figures. Like let's make some physicals. Let's make a Ballerz magazine that people get every quarter. That's just stories from the community, and kind of restore it to a vibe. Not necessarily early on to be like, let's make all this money. Obviously, you know, you plan to make money somehow. But in the way that it's like, let's bring this back as a fun brand, and down the line, then find ways to make money either through merchandise sales or partnerships or whatever, right? But I think it still has that potential because even just marketing it, even just having it be a comeback story is a decent start of marketing and having a change of ownership. I don't know how I'm gonna do this because I don't really talk to the Gaia people anymore. I don't know what they're doing. It's just something that
we don't know anybody there anymore. Like it's everybody's.
I'm sure the original guys are still there, but I don't know.
I know them, but I meant like, all our friends.
My current bid is like whatever money I like savings I have left. So it's like my current bid for the collection is $2,000. You know, like, if they want to sell me the ownership of the collection for $2,000, great. But I don't think they're going to do it. You know what I mean? Again, the Pudgy Penguins, a much bigger collection, I would say, sold for $4 million. Right. I don't know where I'd get the money. Maybe somebody wants to finance that. I don't know. And again, this is maybe it's illegal to say what I'm saying right now. You know what I mean? I don't know any of that. I'm just speculating that it would be fun to run that, or even it doesn't have to be me. Somebody else buy it. Somebody else with a great idea or a great plan or just good vibes. Somebody else go buy it and do something fun with it. But it'd be a cool comeback
we want to be
story.
part of it.
And I feel like it would make a lot of sense. So
I will say this: the fact that you actually threw this idea out there, and I didn't think you would, so I wasn't going to say anything. But the fact that you actually threw this out there, I can almost guarantee there will be a couple of Ballerz bought. Anybody listening to this, I know, I'm telling you, and that's my prediction.
No, Phil, you're not allowed to go buy Ballerz before this.
I'm not going to buy Ballerz, but I'm just saying, if the word spreads within the community, or
don't buy Ballerz.
I'm just saying.
No, not you. I just mean in general. Don't. Isn't like.
That's my prediction, though, because what you say and things like that, like, you know, we have good friends that as soon as they hear something, they go buy no matter what, and it's the risk is very low. Okay, but I will say this: some of the ideas, because a lot of people don't know this, but you know, when LG created the first mint, his plan was always going into a year. He had like a yearly plan. Okay. I was privy to that. Not a lot of people were. So I got to see what the plan was for the year. And I will say that because of the direction that the space went and just how things went, a lot of things never came to fruition. Okay. There was a ton of shit. Like the outline was insane to the point where he had to tell me almost every episode, like, dude, you cannot like say anything to anyone. I know it's like in the next year, but just shut up about everything until it's actual. Yeah. And it's a good thing, because had any of that stuff come out, it'd be like, okay, all right, none of it's possible to happen anymore. So sorry, everybody. It would have been pretty bad. But I will say that some of the ideas that kind of surround the basketball community, which is a pretty big one, a very popular one, that LG had. I don't know why the hell I'm going in dark in the middle of the day. It's like in the middle of the afternoon, I'm going like freaking dark here. Anyways, a lot of the ideas that LG had, and I won't elaborate any more than that, would put him in a tremendous position to run something like Ballerz if he were to do it. That's all I'm going to say. And we didn't plan to talk about this. I'm just saying that some of the ideas he had basketball-wise and community-wise, you know how the Bored Apes have Ape Fest and things like that? LG had very similar ideas for the first mint and for other things. And I think some of those ideas now could be revived and be like, man, that would be super popular and really work in the community. Be like, man, I'd love to do that and things like that, right? Maybe. So that's all I'm saying. So this is kind of a pipe dream in the end. And like I said, if you approach Gaia and Ballerz, you know what they're going to tell you, LG, they want like, $100 million. for the collection, some crap like that, right? For sure. Even though they're not doing anything with it, they probably haven't even looked at it in over a year and a half. They'd still want, money that would not even have been offered even back in the day. So very big pipe dream, but I will say that if somebody does buy the collection and wants to revive it, we'd love to be a part of it. I'll tell you that. Man, I went to that game courtside at the Raptors game with my hoodie, and the people who made that hoodie insisted that I get it the night before the game. They're like, we're going to deliver it to you no matter what before the game. I'm like, well, it's 11:45 p.m. right now, and the game is like tomorrow, and I'm at work all day or whatever, so I don't know when you guys are going to come. And the guy came at like 1 a.m. Some guy out of nowhere, I don't know where he came from, rings the doorbell at 1 a.m. And he's like, I'm like, you're not the guy I was talking to. He's like, no, I'm so-and-so. Here's your hoodie.
That's so sketchy.
It really is, right? But they were hell-bent on getting it to me before the game because they knew at that time. And when I was at the game, I'm not going to lie, people were yelling Ballers. You actually had a few people there who recognized it and were yelling Ballers. That's how kind of, caught people's attention. So really good times in the Ballers space. And if you had told me this morning that we're coming on here and talking about Ballers for like 30 minutes, I would have called you crazy.
What else are we going to talk about,
right?
Phil?
Yeah, it's true. But it is, listen, basketball season's starting though. So it is.
Yeah, there's other stuff I want to talk about today.
Yeah.
What I'm just saying is caveat, don't go by anybody listening. Don't go.
Someone will.
Don't go spend Ballers. Yeah, exactly. That's a good indicator too. Nobody will. Because I don't know. And yet totally it's a pipe dream. It's something I think about a lot. Anybody who knows me, Phil, and thanks for saying what you're saying about like all this beautiful roadmap. Anybody who knows me is that if they know that knowing me, if ideas were crackers, that I would be 400 pounds, honestly, because it's like there's a lot of ideas out there.
That's good.
Some are good, some are bad. The execution is questionable because I have a lot of stuff that I try and do, and then I just get discouraged or get chase something else. So it is hard for me to get ideas off the ground sometimes.
But you need the support too, LG. That's an important part. Support is very important for a lot of these ideas too, right? You need people on board with these. It's not everything's possible within what you're doing. So but they're great ideas. I will say I've seen a lot of them, and I got excited a lot.
Thanks. Yeah, I just think I don't know. I really fleshed out the plan because I think you'd have to buy it. You'd have to hire a team. You'd have to find the money to buy it and make sure that whoever's investing in you buying it can see some profit at some point. But that's also the general challenge, I think, for NFT projects these days. It's like, well, how do you make money, which is often either selling people more things like more NFTs or selling them merch? And also, how do you do that while keeping your holders happy, which generally is going to be based on floor price, right? And how do you actually make that something? I think, Apes does so much, outside of being like the face of NFTs and the thing that when you go in the mainstream media, people are like, well, Apes fucking, it's down so much. Like that's mainly what people want to say. Like, Apes down so much these days. That's what people want to talk about. Like they've done a lot of cool stuff. Like they have a whole like store and website now that features products that people have made with their apes. Right? Like Quad posted this in our Discord. Quad was at the San Francisco airport yesterday, and he was able to buy, what was he buying? It was like ape water in one of the vending machines or something.
Really? I didn't see that.
Where is that?
I didn't see that post.
Here we go. Here it is. I'm just going to pull it up. He was at like the coffee machine. He's at the coffee machine, and his girlfriend saw this, and it was banana cold brew for $6.50, and it's an image of like a pink ape with a banana shirt on, and it's like literally somebody used their ape and licensed it to make banana cold brew, and they're selling it in the vending machine of the airport where it just spits it out. And he said it was pretty good. So it's like and Apes has and another shout out I17 Kula Gene out there who's done a lot of, and Swicky and people like that we know who have done a lot of stuff with their apes. That they've been able to, Apes is kind of like, that's the whole point of licensing it. It's like, well, yeah, the floor's down, but the people who've held and are doing stuff with it, they're doing cool things, right? So I think that's kind of fun. And I don't know if Ballerz, like, again, these are just things that other people have done with their NFT brands to proliferate them and do cool things. I'm not saying that here's the plan for Ballerz, let's go do exactly that, but I think that it's like I don't think simulation games are the greatest thing. First of all, I think simulation sports have their niche, but maybe during COVID. But otherwise, I don't want to watch fucking robots fight each other. You know what I mean? Like, and any of that kind of crap. So I don't know if that was necessarily always the best game plan, in terms of it being the biggest market, as opposed to something like merchandising or letting people merchandise. It's like beverages, like coffee is a $100 trillion industry or whatever. You know what I mean? It's like that's a good market to go into, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know what the future would be for Ballers. Maybe something I could think on. If anybody likes this idea, feel free to DM me and send me your thoughts. I think it'd be something cool to do. You'd have to get the money, and whoever gave you the money, to promise them that you'd be able to give them the money back. So I don't know how that'd work, but anyways.
It'd be fun. And this is why, again, I'll end it with this. The only reason I ever compare it to the Bored Apes kind of platform is because I could picture the same model as you see with the community creators and all that working with Ballerz like it did with Bored Apes. Obviously, I'm not talking about price-wise. I'm not talking about floor prices, nothing like that. I'm just talking about community engagement and what it has turned into, to the point where people are flying to Hong Kong for Ape Fest this year. Like that's crazy that you can actually get people to still do something like that. Yeah. And I feel that you had the right crowd drawn in. I was part of the NBA 2K League community, which is an extension of the NBA before I was into this space. And I will say that the guys and girls in that league, the Ballerz caught their attention. They're part of the NBA, and it took a lot, but Ballerz caught. And look, the best example is an actual player in the league sold that NFT for $100,000, right? That caught their attention. Nothing else catches their attention. They don't care about anything else. But this one specifically caught their attention because it was basketball. So there is an opportunity there to draw in the casual basketball fan, I believe, more so than selling moments of games. If that makes any sense, I don't know. But moments of games, there's nothing special about owning one to some people that a lot of other people own. As opposed to, like, for me, that green alien I had, nobody else had that. Nobody.
No, and we've gone over this many times. Is the idea of owning highlight from a specific game is like, that's a very niche market. Maybe that'll take 20 years to develop. It could still develop, like, sure, but inevitably I think a lot of people look at the Top Shots and the All Days of the World as card collecting, and then that's why they get pissed when there's new cards of the same player coming out, that it's like, well, you're just diluting the other ones, right? So I think that's the major problem. It's like, LeBron has 40 plays on Top Shot. Name me 3 of them that aren't the championship one and the Kobe dunk, right? Or whatever, name me any of the plays of his that have come out in the last 2 series. You can't. Doesn't matter. You can't. You know what I mean? So it's just like but that he has some, that you should own his metallic gold. So it's like more like the collection thing, but that's completely different. I want to use another example, since we're just mainly going to talk about Ballers now. Nakamigos. Okay, you know what Nakamigos are? Yeah, this is a huge collection. This came out in the bear market like less than a year ago, like 6 months ago. They were free.
Yep.
Very similar to Ballers. They look almost identical. Yep. Some are sports, some are just totally random. They're very cool. Same idea. Incognito team. Nobody knows who they are, right? They tried to do a new release last week where they're, people in Nakamigos were going to be able to mint cloaks, but they're going to charge a lot of money for them. So now they made them free. A lot of controversy. Regardless, this Nakamigos on its own has caught a vibe. It was a vibe in the bear market. It still is, right? 42,000 ETH traded. That's almost $70 million by today's ETH price. That's a secondary volume, right? And that's in bear market. So even the idea that it's like, hey, like this kind of, there's not a market for like weird little pixelated things. It's like, well, there is in the NFT market for sure. And if you're saying that something like Ballerz, which is a great name, fucking Ballerz, right? Is like,
it really is. Yeah. With the Z or the Z.
Again, it's not going to have this. You're not going to be able to push it to give it the same run as it had in the bull market. But in terms of like, if our community, I don't mean just First Mint, I mean like us and like the
people in the space.
The people in like the Dapper Flow sports kind of zone here, you know what I mean? There's no more iconic PFP than Ballerz, and OTM has done a good job with Jolly Jokers and getting that out there and making that part of their products. I see a lot of those, so kudos to them. But Ballerz is like, that's Jolly Jokers gives you access to this whole like really cool betting ecosystem that OTM is developing, and I think we can all kind of see where OTM is going. They're doing a really good job at that. But so that's been the one that's been picked up the most in the last year, I'd say. But it doesn't have the same like cultural vibe as Ballerz did. It's completely different, right? So anyways, I think there's potential there. I hope somebody does something with it. I'd love to be that person. I don't have the money to do it, but I think that there'd be something cool there. So if anybody has the same feelings, let us know, because that'd be a lot of fun.
Wow. Wow. This will, you're gonna have to write ballers in the headline for this podcast, LG, because you're gonna draw some attention. You really are.
Ballers.
You have to sneak it in there somewhere, because I'm telling you that community.
No, it'll be the first thing. Yeah,
3,300 of
last time people went nuts. So
3,300 of them still out there.
What?
Members of that community. It's incredible.
Yes,
that's wild.
Well, I'd say half of those are people that are probably afraid to check their portfolios. So.
Or that originally bought one and don't remember buying one, right? They just got one at the start and that was it, and they're just buried there somewhere.
And full caveat, Phil, I don't know if you own it. I don't own any ballers anymore.
I have none.
I purged a couple months ago. I sold them all for around like $90 each or something like that. I still have some sneakers, which are the shoes for your ballers. Which there's never even been a display where you can just see your ballers wearing the shoe. You know what I mean? Like, that's what they're like. You have sneakers and you've never been able to see that. Like, that's what I just don't even fucking understand. So, anyways,
wow.
Let's talk about something else.
I'll tell you something. Okay. And I usually start the show with these very short story. I was out with a friend last night. Okay.
Last night.
And yes. Okay. So here's the thing. First and foremost, my daughter said, she didn't say much actually. She just said there might be a birthday party I need to go to on Sunday afternoon. And you know my reaction to that. Well, the Bills are playing. Sorry. Like, I'll do anything for you. I always have.
On the Bills.
But on Sundays when the Bills are playing, like, no. Why during that time?
No.
So here was the deal. No. I was to drive her to the mall where she would meet her friends for, say, 4 o'clock. The Bills game starts at 1. In my mind, I said, you know what? Worst case scenario, I'll just like completely delay it and I'll drive her there late. Like, I'll wait till the end of the game and just keep saying I have to watch this. And I'll just drive her like half an hour late. The city of Toronto, even on Sundays now, is no longer bearable when it comes to traffic. A 20-minute drive is literally an hour drive. So when I'm sitting there at like 3:15, 3:30, and it's like, you know, the Bills are starting to pull away from this game, and I map it, and it's like an hour away, I'm like, oh, shit, I really screwed up. I'm like, you know what? Bills are winning by 20-something. Let's go. So the plan is to drop her there with her friends, and then they're going to someone's house for the cake and the party after. And I'm like,
your birthday?
No, not my birthday. Her friend's birthday party.
Oh, it was a friend, so it wasn't yours.
It was my daughter's friend's birthday party.
Okay, some other friend. Okay, not you. Okay.
Her friend, not mine.
Yeah.
So all her friends were meeting at the mall and then going over to the friend's house, which is even further from my place. So I'm sitting there and I'm like, well, what the hell am I supposed to do? This NFL Sunday, man. Okay. I do a lot on weekends, but on NFL Sunday, I just want to sit there and do nothing. I want to watch.
Of course, you want to chill. Sunday.
So now I'm like, well, what happens when you're at the mall and like you go to your friend's house later? Like, what time are we talking here? Because I'm gonna have like a lot of hours to kill. I cannot go back home because going back home is another hour just because of the traffic, not because of the distance.
But you're saying she's gonna need a ride back.
Of course.
From the friend's house after.
And I know the friends that are going there, and there's another friend. She's definitely also going to need a ride back. I already know this. Okay.
Right. You got to drive both friends. Yeah.
So one of the dads reaches out to me and he says, let's go for drinks or something. Ironically enough, it is both our birthdays today. Like, it's crazy. Okay. And I don't really ever get along with other people's parents, other kids' parents. Like, I've never been the kind to go for drinks with parents from the hockey team, from the soccer team, from the school kids. Nothing. Because
they're different age.
It could be because I had kids really young, but I still get along with them on a friend level, but not on a going out level. But I had a friend that this one, for whatever reason, we clicked right away. We're almost identical. I feel like we were the same person in high school and all that, and we have the same birthday. Okay, and our daughters are really good friends. So we went out yesterday. Yeah, and we ended up going to the bar, watching football, having drinks. Then we made our way to a local Horton's.
Was it at the mall?
Shoeless Joe's. It was a Shoeless Joe's. And I will say, it shocked me how empty it was. Like 20 years ago, if we were looking to go watch football on a Sunday somewhere, you could not get into your local Jack Astor's, your local Wild Wings, your local Shoeless Joe's, your local Gabby's. You could never get in. It'd be full. There'd be groups of people watching their football, eating their wings, having their drinks, whatever. This place was empty. It was super weird. I guess I don't know if it's like inflation or what, but it was empty. So didn't get too hammered or anything like that. We went, actually, the girls were at the mall for hours, and they told us before that their plan was to leave the house. So after the mall, they were going to someone's house. The plan was to be done at the house because it's Sunday night at 7:30 p.m. Okay. I will say this. I was still at the bar and they were still at the mall. They hadn't gone to the house yet. So now I'm like, you know what? This is ridiculous. Okay. This party is going to end at 10 p.m. Who are these parents that want to have a party at their house on Sunday at like 10 p.m. to cut a cake? Like, what is this? Who comes up with? It's got to be somebody who I don't know what the story is. So go to the local Hortons, which turned out to be like a pure crackhead Hortons. Like
with your buddy or
with my buddy. We go there. Okay. And we start having coffee. We have coffee. We actually bought the donuts with the sprinkles that are colored. And we said, this is like
I always eat those and people always
vanilla dip with like the sprinkles on top.
Yes. I always get those and people always think it's the weirdest thing. I'm like, these are great. I love these donuts.
I don't particularly like them, but this was our birthday donuts. So we're two weirdos getting coffees with those donuts. And we actually took a picture with those donuts. So anyways, long story short, he starts talking to me about this podcast and he heard I have a podcast.
Okay.
So he starts scrolling through saying he needs to listen to this and, and then he hears that it's, it's a big deal and it was a big deal and all that. And he's, oh man, I really got to listen. Then he tells me he wants to make an appearance on the podcast and refers himself.
Not ours, the other one.
No, ours. We're talking about ours here.
Oh, he wants to come on this one.
He heard that I'm on the First Mint podcast. He must have seen it in my profile somewhere, or maybe his daughter told him because the girls talk about it. Right. And he wants to start listening. But not only does he want to start listening, he wants to make an appearance on the podcast with his, I guess, alter ego name, which goes by Fat D. He literally said this. This is my daughter's friend, or my daughter's friend's dad. And we're sitting having coffee in like a crackhead Hortons at Lawrence and Dufferin area, okay? And we're talking about Fat D making an appearance on this podcast. And I'm just like, dude, what would you even talk about? Well, everybody wants to make a podcast appearance, but do you have something to say? Like, do you have something interesting to say? But he is an interesting guy. So you know what? I could tell we were loud because we had a couple of drinks. I could tell people around us were like, what the fuck are these guys talking about right now? Right? Like, yeah, I was looking around. People were all looking. They're like, what podcast? What's going on here? I mean, the guy behind us, like, I don't know. People had brought their own like instant noodles. We're putting them in bowls. I'm like, well, I don't know what's going on here. We need to get the hell out of this place. It was getting sketchier by the minute. At the end of the day, I didn't get home until almost.
You say it was the Dufferin Mall?
Not Dufferin Mall. So Yorkdale Mall in Toronto, just south of there on Dufferin is a Hortons and plazas and stuff like that, right before Lawrence. At the end of the day, so we ended up going to. He said, you know what? Let's go back to my house and we'll wait for the girls there. When they call us, we'll go pick them up at the other house.
Okay.
So we went there. I somehow lost him in the mix. I don't know where the hell he went. He ended up getting to the house and I didn't even know he was there. So I was like sitting outside for like 20 minutes. Then we said, you know what? Party's over, girls. Like, we're coming to get you.
Yeah.
We take the cars. We head over to that location.
Time is at this point.
We decide to park in front and just like wait there and keep messaging them. Tell them, let's go. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm not friends with these other parents. He is. So if he goes to the door, he's obligated to go inside.
Of course. Yeah.
Okay. So I'm like, dude, don't go anywhere. Come sit in my truck.
Yeah.
Comes to sit in the back of my truck. And we're sitting there like two sketch bags outside. Okay. Does the mom not come out of the house? I don't know how she knew we were there. The mom of this house. Yeah, she comes outside. We have to roll our windows out. I'm like, let's hide. And she's like, you guys need to come inside. I'm like, oh, hell no. Like, no, sorry. Got work tomorrow. I can't. Yeah. And she's one of those that just persists and doesn't stop. Doesn't matter. Yeah. Listen, lady, I work tomorrow. I don't know if you do, but I need to go.
Yeah.
And doesn't care. Just come in, have some cake, some drinks, and you can go.
Mm-hmm.
In the house we go. Bunch of teenage girls, chaos. Spent, I'd say, a good 45 minutes to an hour. I was part of the singing of this happy birthday song, all that stuff. Okay. Mm-hmm. Complete mess. Mm-hmm. I didn't get home until near the end of that NFL game last night. Okay. Just in time to get screwed in fantasy football by Kendrick Bourne catching like 3 passes for 20 yards on the final drive and making me lose my matchup in the secret First Mint fantasy football league.
Secret.
Okay. It's a big secret. Again, people are always like, what league? I'm like, it's secret. I lost to Chester Hester by 1 point in that league because of Kendrick Bourne's nonsense at the end. So altogether yesterday, aside from the Bills winning, it wasn't a very good day. I had a good time with my buddy, Fat D. But at the end of it was rough after that. I mean, these birthday parties, I already warned her. I said, listen, anyone who does birthday parties on like Sunday afternoons night, forget it. No, it doesn't work like that. Even adults don't do this. So I don't know where you guys get this. That's ridiculous. So
wow.
Yeah.
And let's meet Fat D.
He'd be a riot. If he came on here, he would be, man, he needs to come on. You know what he needs to do? He needs to figure his shit out, and he needs to buy an NFT, a season 1 media pass, and get on one of these shows somehow. I don't know how.
He should come on trivia or on.
He needs to figure out how to get on one of these exam shows. So
Yeah.
so Fat D, if you're listening, because I know you will, all those times you offer me to buy me drinks and all,
Man.
don't buy me drinks. Use that cash to buy a season 1 media pass of your choosing and get your ass on one of these shows the right way, so the world can find out what you're all about, dude. We share the same birthday, so
I think
we
we
have the same
dollars and then give it over to Fat D without knowing anything else about him. He has
Career
the same
change?
birthday as you. He's a good buddy of yours. Let's just
Good
let him run Ballers with zero experience at all in the space. I think
that'd be wild. That'd be wild, but it'd be a bold move, and it would be career
D.
change.
He hears through the grapevine that you have a podcast. Does he understand what NFTs are? Like, do the teenagers, when they're like, they're like, oh, like,
Nope.
your dad has a podcast. Do they? And
No.
it's about NFTs. Are they all like, that's fucking stupid? It's a scam.
They
like,
can't even explain what it is. So
what do they say?
They can't even explain what it is. They have no clue.
No, they don't.
So, like,
Okay.
Dad, can you explain NFTs?
Do they think it's really smart, or do they think it's really like a scam? Or they're like, oh, he's an NFT show.
You know
like,
what?
that's really
They see
hard
some
to
of the
understand.
success that we've had, so they think it's pretty cool. They just don't understand enough about it. Until they start talking about it in things like high school and things like that, they'll have no clue forever, right? It would have to be taught at that level. And what class would you make that part of? Like, what class would you include NFTs? Would you include that in science class?
Does computer
Seriously.
class still exist?
Computer
Like
class?
to type on computers?
No, I don't think so.
Like a typing competition. Who could type the most words per minute?
No,
Like
that's
a 5
gone.
minute.
They had that little turtle on the black screen you have to move around. I don't know what the hell that was, but
That was a Mac program. I forget what that was.
that was.
Well, I hope
failed
you know
at
what, I
everything.
hope in schools, maybe this, I don't know if your daughter's gone through this, but in schools, I would assume that by today's standards, they should have a class where they learn some basic programming. Like, that's such a common,
Yeah.
a common job to be a developer.
Mhm.
That it's just as likely that you'll need your English class to be a writer, or like a, chemistry to be whatever. It's like you should have like grade, like 9th or 10th grade, like computer class where there's a couple months where you like write a bit of code. Like,
I think at the
feel like that'd be
older
really
age
helpful for
groups,
people.
it's probably an elective or something like that where you learn.
They should learn that.
But I think so. I agree with you. I think
they
this
should
day
learn
and
that.
age,
They
it'll
should
be
learn
very
those features
valuable.
or Java or something like
They
that.
need to update the curriculum, to be honest with you, to meet what's going on today. It's still very old school, right? Like,
Yeah.
I mean, I get it playing instruments and shit like that, but no, you're right.
And also,
that's
being a
fine.
developer can be a really good job. It's like still the most sought after job that exists. So it's like, that's a lot of kids might discover, even by doing like programming for like 2 months in 9th grade, they might discover that they're really good at it, or that they really like it. And that's a great place for them, because it's a really popular and lucrative career in some cases. So
I agree.
I hope they teach that somewhere.
I also had to earlier today, this is typical me, I had to actually message my friend and be like, okay, that name you referred to yourself as last night, I forgot what it was. And guess what? He also forgot what it was, but it was something along the lines. He said it's either Big D or Fat D. So I went with Fat D. I just have to make an
It has to
addition.
be Fat D.
Because if he comes flying on here one day with another name, it's not my fault. I actually forgot.
No, I don't care what his other name is. It can only be Fat D. I don't want to hear I don't care what the fuck he comes on here and calls himself. It's you, Fat D, for sure. Because you're Phil D. You guys are like,
Yeah.
you're born the same day.
The real Fat D. I like that.
The real Fat D.
That's a new brand now. You're gonna have all sorts of the real something. The real Fat D.
Oh shit! It's the.
But he'd be great. I'm telling you right now, this guy would be an absolute riot and be like, man, who is this guy? Where did he?
I'll
come
just,
from?
you know what? We'll do another co-host. Listen, there's NFTs out there that lets you co-host the podcast. Get one for him.
I think
and then
so.
I just won't
I
show
think
up that episode, and you guys can just do one on your own and see what happens.
I think I'll send him that as a birthday
chamber
present.
stuff when we did.
All
it
right,
in the summer.
if you own that NFT, hit me up. I need to get it for him. That's a great idea, actually. Because
Dollar's gonna hit you up. Dollars owns every NFT that exists. of like first mint ones. So
Dollars
will definitely hit you up.
Dollars, if you're listening, do not go buy any Ballers, please. I was just joking earlier.
Phil, do
I
you, have
know
any, do you have any birthday traditions? Because we have just so everybody knows, it is Phil's birthday. We do have a little giveaway going on First Mint on Twitter, where you just retweet and get Phil's float, which is like a POAP, but it's a float. I'm going to put in the link for the description of the podcast. There's just a little NFT for Phil's Bday. So happy birthday, Phil. Do you have any traditions on your birthday? Like wake up and go for a long run, or a certain type of cake that you need to have, or a beer or anything like that? What's your
Who
vibe?
the hell goes on a long run as like a birthday tradition? I'm like, come on, that's not something
I
you
think I
wake
did
up
that
and be like,
one year when I was
it's my birthday.
25 and
I'll go for a run.
ambitious, and I was like, yeah, new year this year, I'm gonna run, and I didn't run for like 6 months after that. So
No, the only time you go for runs when you think of next summer, like, yeah, I got to be in shape this year.
yeah. That's totally it. And for you, summer, your birthday comes like right as the summer's ending, so it's like you don't give a shit about that.
No, I am happy though that I had my birthday in school all the time. I feel like that's kind of underrated to be acknowledged by all your peers and things like that. I will say, being part of the gaming community for so many years, even though I'm not a gamer, but I was part of like the NBA 2K League.
Yeah.
So you do have, and again, no disrespect to gamers, I have a lot of gamer friends, but you do have some kind of people who for their entire lives have not been part of any social crowds outside of their gaming communities, right? Seriously. Like they have never left their house to do other things with other people because they've been gaming since they were like 12, right? And they've been professionals now. So I noticed a lot of times in the gaming community, most specifically in the NBA 2K League community, a lot of people would wish themselves like happy birthday on Twitter, not directly saying happy birthday to me. They would say things like, can't believe I lived to see 21, like, and that would ignite like 100 birthday messages. I was always like, what is going on here? Like, wow, still alive at 25. Like, shit like that. I was like, for me, it's more like I've always tried to avoid it. Not that I don't want to be celebrated, but it's not something I've ever promoted. But I did enjoy having it at school where they would announce it to everyone and everyone would go crazy. Like the whole class would clap. And I thought it was really cool. And I felt bad for the kids who didn't have that because as embarrassing as it can be, it was still a nice time to have other, people acknowledge your birthday. But there are 2 or 3 months of the year where if you're born in those months, that's never been part of your traditions. Yeah. For me, it's been more, I still go to work and all that. I didn't today. I don't ever take the day off or anything like that, but today just happened to work from home and for my own reasons. But other than that, I usually still go to work, and I still like to. I don't tell people it's my birthday, but people find out anyways, and I like to whoop it up. Right? That's just who I am. So, but other than that, no. Get together with our parents. If you follow me on Instagram, and some people from the space do, you are aware of a cake cutting incident like 4 or 5 years ago with our dad, where he cut me the most disgraceful piece of cake on his birthday, not mine. Okay, literally, you cannot make up the size of this piece of cake. It was the size of like an eraser. All right.
That's what this cake.
So I looked at all my memories today, and I have all these videos of me kind of trying to show up Dad on how to cut a cake properly. And because of that day, now Dad gets like the biggest pieces of cake in history because I always remind him that he gave me the most pathetic piece in history, and I will continue to give him the biggest piece in history to show him how a cake. Oh my God, it's become a big thing. He actually refuses. Yeah, go ahead. He refuses to
understand what this did to Phil's Instagram when this slice of cake from like 5 years ago, because then every single occasion where you'd hang out with mom and dad for birthdays, so for like your kid's birthday, their birthdays, freaking Christmas, anything, you would then post these insane Instagram videos of you like putting the camera right up in Dad's face as he's like cutting cake or eating cake, and he's just so pissed off about it. Like, he's so annoyed, and you're just like, whoa, cake, and then even the point where I start filming you at Christmas, whenever you'd get a slice of cake or Christmas log or whatever the hell we'd have. So this went on for a long time. And like a lot of people I knew would ask me about it. They'd be like, what's up with your brother and the dad and cake, man? Like, what is
cake cutting incident? It went viral. Yeah. And he actually refuses to cut cake anytime I'm there now. I'm not joking.
No, yeah, because you're a menace.
He wants nothing to do with cutting cake. He knows
if that was happening, I'm looking at him. I wouldn't.
Hey, that's my tradition, right? Like I will say this. I don't know if you know this because we haven't been around together for birthdays that much over the last whatever years.
It's true. Yeah.
But I go to with my kids having 10 to 15 little cousins. Okay. Yeah. I go to a lot of kids' Christmas parties or kids' birthday parties. Yeah. I also go to all their parents' birthday parties. So if you do the math, each kid with 2 parents and all the cousins, we're talking like 30 different people have to have birthdays.
You have a lot of in-laws.
I have a lot of people to celebrate. And we're talking colleagues, everything. And my traditional birthday song does not end after happy birthday 2 or 3 times and then goes to like the chorus and the end and all that. I sing happy birthday, the words happy birthday, over and over and over again until people really start to look. So on the weekend, you have no idea how it goes. People who have never experienced it kind of look around and they're like, what's going on here? Because it goes, happy birthday to you, happy birthday to you. And then I keep going, happy birthday to you. When they all go into the happy birthday. No, there is none of that. In my world, we don't do that. We continue to sing happy birthday until the entire room is annoyed. Okay. And then everyone starts looking like, what's going on? What's going on? What? I look around, I'm like, holy shit, everyone's really pissed. So on the weekend, I went to a farm. Okay. I went to a 7-year-old's birthday party where you could ride ponies, see llamas. As soon as I heard llamas, I'm like, you know what? I'm in. You could see llamas, there were pigs, goats, all chaos. And I was running around with the kids, like, making them touch the pig's snout, all that crap, right? I love doing that. When the parents aren't around, I make them do all sorts of crazy shit. Nobody ever knows. And then they go eat pizza. I'm like, you ate pizza after touching the pig's ass, And then the parents are like, what? Anyways,
that does sound dangerous. Like,
it's brutal at the farm. I'm like, who has Purell here, man? This is brutal.
Yeah, there's a lot of bacteria on the farm. I don't recommend touching the pig's ass and then eating.
So when these kids are in school, they now invite, it's not just family that comes. They actually invite like friends from school. So you've got it's weird because in the past when the kids were like before 5 years old, everybody there. It's all family, right? Now you've got all these random parents that show up. It's like, it's weird. It's like, hey, I'm the crazy uncle, or whatever. And then every time we get to the actual cake part, okay, I've got an army of kids now that make sure the song is sung the proper way. The older ones are all on board with me to keep that going because it can't just be me. People will overrule me sometimes if there's too many people. So on the weekend, I had my little warriors there. I reminded all 3 or 4 of them, hey, we're about to do the song. You guys need to follow the plan as usual. And I knew that the parents were going to be embarrassed in front of these other parents that we were going to sing this version of the song.
Really weird
it's
song.
Freaking weird, man.
Yeah.
So I was belting it out. Okay. And right away, I looked at, people were trying to explain to these other parents ahead of time what was about to happen. And it still caused mass confusion, but people love it. I mean, people love something different. I think I need to put a patent on that because that's my move. It's been my move for years. And I recommend you try it. When you go to a party, just continue singing happy birthday and see how people kind of react. And you'll get some crazy reactions. But
nobody can do that but you. You're the only one who can do that. Our listeners aren't going to start doing that at birthdays. People are going to think they're really freaking weird.
We should run a contest, actually.
You're talking
Try
about
it with your family at the next birthday and videotape yourself and see what happens.
Even if you had never done that before and you started doing it now, people wouldn't be shocked because that's your brand. Is this menace at that kind of shit? Other people are really normal when they go to birthday parties, and if they started doing that kind of stuff, it'd be really bizarre. Like they'd get divorced or something.
There's actually one couple that because they know I'm going to do this, and I think that they might get embarrassed in front of like their parents from the side that we don't know. They've actually started playing the song, like a recording of the song. They bring speakers. I'm not joking. And I got really pissed when I realized
they can like mute you out.
There's no muting me out. All of a sudden, they're like, it's cake time. They blast the speakers as loud as they can. Yeah. And the happy birthday is sung on the speakers, not by anybody else. So that completely kind of kiboshes my deal. But then as soon as it's over, you know what I do, right? I just get into the other rendition of it.
Sure.
And we move on. So hopefully we all get to celebrate birthdays together once, and I can show everyone what that's all about. It's quite the experience for sure.
Well, I'm very happy for you. I'm very happy that you get to flex this birthday menace muscle like all the time because clearly there's a lot of birthday parties for you to go to.
I think so. There's more than enough, and we've actually kind of decided this year at Christmas, like since we go to 15 birthday parties for kids and then each of their parents throughout the year, which takes up 90% of the year. It really does. There's not one open day or weekend. We've kind of decided this year at Christmas. Sorry, but all the kids are not getting presents. No. It's if you do the math, it's getting out of hand, and not everyone's done having kids. So it's like no, someone has to put an end to this, and I think we'll all be on board because LG. Let's be honest, these kids' birthday presents, what happens to them after you give them to the kids? Most of them get put away in the basement. I have a collection.
Play with them for 5 minutes after you give it to them.
That's right.
And then they end up playing with the rock and the stick that they were playing with before.
Or the wrapping. The little ones play with the wrapping. They love the bubble.
Especially really young kids. Like they just want to play with the box and shit. Everybody knows that. And then the kids that are like 8, it's like, yes, they want the new Nintendo, but there's one out of all the presents they're gonna get, there's one thing they're really gonna love, and the rest doesn't matter. It's gone.
Yeah. So that was a business decision that was recently made to
no kid wants clothes. Nobody wants.
No, there's always someone that gets clothes, and you can tell the kid's reaction. They kind of pull it out, and they're like, they give it to their mom. They're like, "Yeah, next."
Yeah, like that's it. Give it to the parents. Don't give the kid a gift, and give the clothes to the parents, or give the kid like a chocolate bar or something like that, and then give the president that's like, okay, new pajamas. You know what I mean? Like just whatever it is, just give it to the parents. Like that's way more for the parents. Like you don't care how you're dressed until you're like 12. So it is what it is.
Even then, I'd say way older than that. So
yeah. Yeah, and even when you're 12 and you want to dress cool, you don't want people to buy you clothes, especially not your aunts and uncles and shit. Ugh, no.
That is our financial advice for anyone out there who's attending a lot of kids parties and stuff, and you know, and your friends have a lot of cousins.
Buy them a Ballers.
Buy them a Ballers.
That's what we'll do. We'll have a kids' birthday program where it's like if you own you buy Ballers on your birthday, you get a whole package. We send like a guy in a Ballers costume to your birthday party, and he does a dance and shit like that. Back.
Oh man, as long as you make sure it's Cold Brew King, I'll take it.
Do you go to any birthday parties that have performers where there's like a Spider-Man or a Disney princess or anything like that?
Kids parties?
Yeah.
No, our crowd doesn't really do that. The closest they come to that is Chuck E. Cheese, where that creepy mouse like dances and twirls all the kids and stuff. But I think you have to be careful with those things these days. It's not what it used to be to bring characters. These characters are getting killed all over the place. Like the ones at Disney, if they do one little thing, they're all like fired and sued and all that. They got to be real careful because the kids like to hug. Like I always with mascots, when I see at sporting events, I'm like, man, I wouldn't want to be in there. I'm not gonna lie. Like, no, the intentions would never be wrong, but to hug kids and stuff, man, is like, I don't know who's in there. I wouldn't want to be in there and hugging kids and looking at the parents, wondering if they're thinking weird shit. You know, it's become really weird. And I don't know if you saw. Did you see the Mike Babcock story? To completely,
yeah, I've been following.
Dude. Like, okay, do you agree with the firing or that he resigned?
No,
you don't.
No.
I do.
That's fine.
Just because it was so creepy. Like,
I mean, none of the players said they had a problem with it.
They did though. The young guys did. That was the issue. All the young guys had. So all the rookies had a problem with it, and you know why? So for those who don't know, Mike Babcock, I guess I don't know if we can call him a Hall of Fame NHL coach. I guess maybe.
I mean, he was eventually the Red Wings for a long time, and they did really well.
He won a Stanley Cup.
He's a legendary coach. Let's say he had a lot of. He's not been a good coach since then.
No,
but he was a good coach of a good team for a long time.
And he was the coach of the Toronto Maple Leafs not too long ago. And he was fired. And he ended up coaching in like the minor leagues and like the junior leagues for the last whatever years. Okay. Yeah. He was recently hired at the end of last season to be the head coach of the Columbus Blue Jackets, my former hometown years ago, as their new head coach. And they have a lot of young players there, a lot of high draft picks, and a lot of big ticket players that they've spent a lot of money on the last couple of years. So everyone was excited. They finally have an established head coach. He's worked with young players before. He's worked with superstar players before. He's won Stanley Cups before.
And they had John Tortorella before that.
They had John Tortorella.
Just so everybody knows, John Tortorella is like a psycho coach. You know, absolutely like insane.
Goes into the other team's locker room after the game and like
exactly. And he's always saying like crazy profanities, and all that kind of stuff. They went from like psycho coach to like quiet, reserved experience. And John Tortorella has a lot of experience too. He's been coaching for like 20 plus years, but he's really, really outspoken. Whereas Mike Babcock like doesn't say anything. You know, he's a very normal, nice guy kind of thing.
Yeah. So it came out about a week ago that Mike Babcock, this head coach, was meeting with players one-on-one. And to be clear, they had not had a single practice on the ice with him yet. He hasn't gone to training camp. Nothing's happened yet aside from him meeting with the players one-on-one to introduce himself. Yeah. And apparently during these meetings, he was asking the players to like connect their phones to, I don't know why, or to pull their phones out and show him on his screen or whatever, that projector or whatever the hell he had there, pictures of their families or whatever else they had on their phone. He wanted to see what was on their phone. Okay. So the captain,
no. You're saying
but it keeps changing though.
And he was showing photos of him. He said, you got to give it context. He said, and he's been doing this for years, and he's done it with a lot of players. That it's like to get to know the players. We're gonna sit down. We're gonna get to know each other. I want to know about your family. You know, your parents and your siblings, and like what matters to you. And then he would share a lot about himself. Mm-hmm. And I think that to me is super normal. Like if you want to get to know somebody, break the ice. It's like there's nothing that you got to get, like you want to get to know somebody and start to build trust. You get them to talk about themselves, and you get them to talk about things that mean something to them. Okay. And I think as a coach, and you have more coaching experience than I do, mm-hmm. I think one of the most important things as a coach, coaching players, is to know their motivation, right? Mm-hmm. Like what motivates somebody? Do they want to be famous? They want to be rich? They want to be the best player ever? What is important to people? So on the surface, the actual practice, I don't have a problem with that. If he's like, show me photos of your family on your phone, and the player says no, and he's like, no, you have to, I think that's bad. I don't know that happened.
Well, here's the thing. So the veteran players defended it, said, well, they didn't defend it. They just said they were okay with it. They didn't have a problem with it. They didn't have a problem showing pictures of their families. He did the same. It was a normal interaction. But you have to consider that this day and age, in the age of things like Snapchat and TikTok and all that, these 18, 19, 20-year-old players, there is a good chance that they have inappropriate stuff in their phones, okay? Whether it's stuff they sent to someone. Yeah, I'm just saying. There is probably stuff they do not want to show. So when they're told to whip out their phones and show me your last 20 pictures, I want to know your life or whatever the hell went down. It's unclear how it actually went down.
Show me your last 20 pictures.
But if you read if you listen to Biss on the Spitting Chicklets podcast, the story changed from the first time he reported it. It started turning into, yes, that's what he did. It started with he asked to send pictures of their family and he would send some of his and they would just look at them. But then it turned out that apparently he told them to show me your phone, the last 20 pictures, and that would tell me a lot about you or some shit. Okay. That's why I'm saying that. It keeps changing. Nobody really knows what happened. But you can imagine a young player who the hell knows what they're doing. All right. Having some stuff they don't want anyone to see on that phone. And if you have to pull out your phone, you'll be like, no, I don't want to. So they probably went to their agents and said, this guy wants to look at my phone. I don't like that shit. I don't want to show me and my girl or, whatever. Like, you know what I mean? Right. So they had a problem with it. And for me, it's like there was no way out of that. He's had things like this before as well.
Soft. Come on, man.
It is soft. It is soft.
Come on, why is everybody's reaction to complain of the fucking principal these days? Why is that like everyone's problem? And then again, sure, he's the head coach. He's been coaching for 30 years.
It's creepy though.
Rookie. You're not going to be like, fuck off, coach. I'm not going to show you my phone. Like you're not in that position. But at the same, I'm not saying that it's like, okay, that they have to tell him, everybody has that skill. It's really hard when you're young to develop that. And even as an adult to, to develop your boundaries and tell people what's okay when they're in your space.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, it's like for this, it's like, okay, well, Mike Babcock is like fucking 60 years old. He doesn't have nude photos on his phone of himself or other people. You know what I mean? Like, so he clearly doesn't have a problem. A bunch of fucking boomers out there don't understand that. Go on Boomer Facebook. They post the dumbest shit. So people don't really like it's a little, I think it's a little extreme to assume that old people, like a 6-year-old Mike Babcock, has this like digital literacy that why would he like, do you think he's looking at their phones hoping that there's nude photos? Like, no, he's not. He doesn't know that that's possible. So I think that's a simple like behavior check. That's like, hey, Mike, like some of these kids, they're irresponsible. They have weird photos on their phone. Maybe don't ask them to do that or ask them if they're comfortable sharing it first. You tell him that and he'll be like, okay, sounds good. And then that's it. Let's just move on from it. You know what I mean? It's not, I don't know why it has to be a cancel culture moment because he's trying to players. And he doesn't realize that some of them have weird photos on their phones. Like that's insane. Like, what are we doing?
I agree, but I just, given the nature in terms of, I'm not saying I agree with it or I don't. What I'm saying is this had to happen because there was no moving forward with him after that happened. If you've lost half the room because these young guys can't handle shit like that, you just have to know how to deal with it. Like I've adjusted my coaching over the years just to know how to deal with today's crowd. Okay. Every kid in the dressing room, with the older ones, they want to vape and they want to do shit like that. And they want to play on their phones. There were no phones before in the locker room. It just wasn't a thing you ever worried about. It didn't exist, right? So times have changed and you kind of have to adapt to it. Vaping obviously is not allowed no matter what. And it's a huge issue. So is chewing tobacco and shit like that in the hockey locker rooms. It's been an issue for a while. But in this case, with what was coming up this season and how much was on the line, how much the team spent and all that, I just think there was no turning back. I agree with what you're saying. But there's things you just can't do anyway. Like look at Don Cherry. Okay, Don Cherry's extreme. He's racist all the time and shit like that. Okay, but there was no turning back from the stuff that he was allowed to say for all these years. When he said it now in this day and age, it became an issue. It wasn't an issue ever before for some reason, right? Now it became a big issue. So he's gone. He's completely been canceled. He's vanished. Now he does his own podcast, and we don't even know if it's really him talking. But it's for me. He did the right thing. He will never coach in the NHL again. There's nobody that will hire him after this happened. And I think if he was a younger guy, if he was like one of the coaches that's in their 30s or 40s, it would have been different. He's now approaching 70 or something. So he's the age of some of these guys' grandfathers. And I think, like you said, soft culture these days, but you have to read the room when it comes to these things. The policies have changed so much over the last even 5 years at every company, including these organizations, with all the scandals in hockey related to sexual abuse and things like that. Totally. I think there was zero room for anything that suggested that might be what's going on. All the veteran players said that that's not what's going on, and they never felt that. But the minute some of the young guys say they felt that was the end of the line. It just was, right? And I remember Babcock, apparently back in his Leafs days, had asked some of the players on the team to name the worst player on the team. And I know that didn't sit well with some guys. Okay, some guys are like, I don't want to do that.
That's
right.
But hold on. That's very different than what you're suggesting. Now, like, listen, coaching tactics.
Yeah.
And like, okay, I have a few things to say. First of all, Columbus Blue Jackets have always been a completely spineless organization, without a doubt. One of the worst in hockey by a mile in terms of personnel decisions, management of the team, perennially shitty team. So, not exactly the organization you look up to. To me, I understand everybody's there from the point of view, and I respect yours and everybody else's. To me, it's as simple as being like, roll him out and be like, listen, I didn't know I didn't realize that made people uncomfortable, so I'll stop. I'm sorry to the young players I made uncomfortable, but like, let's go have a great season. Nothing wrong was done here. And there's nothing illegal or anything inappropriate necessarily that was done that I thought I was doing inappropriately. And the organization to be like, yeah, we've spoken to Mike Babcock and he agrees and he'll stop doing that. Or he'll ask the players if they do want to share some family photos or whatever before they do. End of story. Especially it's a big year for them. A new coach is firing a coach a month before the season. Anyways,
it's crazy.
There's that.
2 days before training camp is what it is.
And, I know what you're saying about like, you have experience coaching, especially young kids. You got to be really careful. You got to read the room. You have to understand.
Careful when you touch. You know how you pat guys' heads and stuff like that? You got to be careful.
I totally understand that. Yeah, like patting on the butt. Not
butt. Even on the shoulder, man. You got to be. I'm serious.
Sunday Night Football, and they all smacking each other's asses, anyways. So, but all it takes is one player to be like, I didn't like how he touched me on the other team, and then you're done, right?
You're done. You're gone.
That's you have to understand totally. That's the age we live in now, and I get it. When it comes to coaching tactics, what Mike Babcock did with Mitch Marner on the Maple Leafs 6 years ago is Mitch Marner, one of the best players in the league still now. And at the time, one of the best up and coming prospects in the league. Maple Leafs had a big youth movement. He asked him in a private meeting, he's like, rank your teammates from worst to best. And then he showed everybody that ranking. And that to me, there's two thoughts there. One, if you're in a workplace, you get fired because that's a major breach of privacy. Like you can't, if your boss is like, hey, give me some private information, how you feel about your colleagues. And then he has a meeting with everybody. He's like, here's how the top colleague feels about all of you. That's pretty fucked up, not appropriate. The other thought of that, the devil on the shoulder to me is like, well, the difference between Mike Babcock in the NHL and someone like you coaching 14-year-olds who are vaping is in one situation, they're trying to win the freaking Stanley Cup and they're getting paid millions of dollars to do it. And you're at the top of the league. And I think coaches are going to come up with new tactics to motivate people. And some of those tactics are going to be super messed up sometimes. If people don't like it, they'll lose the room. Sometimes it's going to be inappropriate. They should get fired. I just think there's a difference of like, you're at a different level. I think even if you have that through line that it's like he did that with Mitch Marner in 2017, clearly a terrible thing to do, really, really mean to everybody involved and a huge breach of privacy. So he probably lost the room with stuff like that.
You lose the room right away with something like that for sure.
Maybe now he's trying to do different things. He's like, I got another shot, and you know what? I'm going to try being really, really nice to players. Like I'm going to try and really connect with them in a really nice way and build trust privately rather than public humiliation. Maybe he's actually trying something different. That's a huge assumption because clearly now it just sounds like I'm just trying to defend him to the death. I only care so much about that. I just think it's like, what I think that there's a certain point where it's like, what is coaching past a certain point, if not like coming up with novel ways to connect with the players you're coaching and to motivate them. Right.
Yep. No, I agree. I think what he could have done just to avoid this, he could have done this with the leadership of the team and probably got away with it. Just the leaders that already have families and probably nothing crazy on their phones or whatever. If that's what the issue is. And the guys who would maybe understand kind of where he comes from. But the younger guys was dicey because like you said, it's a whole new generation. To even play hockey in Canada, I don't know about the United States, you need to go through all these training courses as a parent, as a coach, as a referee, as a player that have to do with things like this and things you think are wrong, where they encourage you that if you think something's wrong, you must say something and have a problem with it. Okay. So they're brought up in that world. When we played, we never filled out forms and had like to even go on the bench. I have to go through hours and hours and hours and hours and hours of training on stuff where I'm just like, okay, this is all stuff where if you actually have common sense, you're not gonna have a problem with it regardless, right? Yeah. It's stupid. But the players even have to go through it in terms of what they do. So I think it would have worked if he did it just with the captain and the assistants, just to get to know them. And then maybe those guys could have worked on the young guys in terms of having a relationship like that. But the minute you go to 18, 19-year-olds and you want to see what's on their phone, I think if any teacher did that at school, they'd get in big trouble. I think if any anywhere else you do that, you get in big trouble. So the league is sensitive to it now, and the NHLPA, as soon as they heard about this, they're like, "Oh, all right, we're going to start our investigation."
Them being in the NHL and them being in school, yeah, of course you do. High school students, sure, that's bad. But let's say you started, like, let's say you're an intern, you're starting a new job, and it's your first day on the job, and you go, and the person who's managing you is like, "Let's go for coffee and get to know each other." And they ask you, "Hey, like, so tell me about you and your family." Right. And like, show me photos of your, you and your brothers or your girlfriend or like, your dog or whatever. Just show me some of that. I'll show you some of my life, and then we'll know each other a little bit. And then let's go back to the office and start working. I think that's really normal. I think that happens everywhere all the time. And if the person doesn't want to, hopefully they built the life skills at a young age to be like, no, that's a little weird. I don't really feel comfortable saying that. I can also it's your superior, and it's really weird to be like, no, I don't want to do that. I'm just saying that there's this we're kind of stuck in this cancel loop now of like somebody asked somebody to do something, they weren't sure how they felt about it. They might have felt uncomfortable about it. There's like maybe there's a sexual tone in the air and they don't know, and then later they're going to report it. And I think that's kind of like, well, how do we fix that? A, how do you correct the behavior? A, how do you B, how do you judge what an appropriate penalty is, if it should be a penalty? And C, the most important part is like, was the behavior malicious or not? Yeah. Right. Yep. And with Babcock, it's like, well, it's really, that's the part you judge in court if you ever need to, is like, what was the intent? Right.
It never got to that. He just, after 2 days of investigating, where they claimed to have found all sorts of new stuff, they put him in a position where they said, we're probably going to fire you. If you want to just save grace a little bit, resign. And I think that kind of stuff comes to where it's built. It's a lot of it is like that kind of stuff will avalanche based on your reputation. And I think he'd built a negative reputation, probably with stuff like Mitch Martin of like stuff adds up.
Name your shitty teammates and let's talk to it. Let's show it to the whole freaking team and that kind of stuff. It's like, I feel like there's some people out there who have a target on their back, and it's like people are waiting for them to slip up. And once they do, they're going to avalanche all the bad news on them. And that's what happens these days. And whether it's right or wrong, I don't know. Should those people go? Yes, they should. Don Cherry was long overdue, and the network was looking for a way to get him off the air because he was like 85 and would say insane things sometimes. So I think once they had their opportunity, they took it. But yeah, it is what it is. It's a hard world these days for that kind of stuff.
What I got out of all this, LG, is that if LG ends up buying Ballerz somehow, and he's hiring like staff to work for you for Ballerz, have your pictures ready in your phone. Okay. He wants to see everything about you.
That's the interview. Take out your phone, and if there's show me the last 20 photos, and if one of them is a middle, you're gone. You're fired.
And there's no resume or anything. Just show me the last 20 pictures.
Yeah, that's it. Just show,
and I'll make my own decision if I should hire you.
Yeah, that's it. If it's not photos of Ballerz on your phone, you're gone. You're out.
Oh man, you'd get some wild stuff, I'm sure. So that's
I think it's just tough. We live in a world where it's like, even for me, I'm like, well, there's been times where it's like I've lost my temper at work against towards other people, to people that manage me or people that I managed or people that were my equals, and playing hockey. You know what I mean? Nobody's perfect, and if the people that I got in verbal arguments with because I lost my temper, I was in a bad mood or something like that when I was like 22, if ever they put out news stories about me about it, it'd look bad. But it's like, I don't know, like that's a pretty, and again, that's not what Mike Babcock did. I don't know enough about the story.
Yeah, it keeps changing. Like if you read yesterday now, they found brand new stuff and they haven't said what it is. So it's like,
I'm not defending it. I am defending it. At the same time, I'm like, there's a lot, I acknowledge a lot I don't know. I think I'm just annoyed by the general idea that it's like, well, I think the first reaction shouldn't be cancel. I think the first reaction should be like, should be discussion with that person and what happened, and to really understand it, and not just jump to like, hey, you have to get rid of this person now and they can't ever coach in the NHL again. I think that's been the larger problem. And some people, obviously, as part of cancel culture, because it's an enormous spectrum of stuff. Absolutely, it's like, well, it's decades-long behavior. They needed to go, and that's really, really bad. Some of the stuff they did. But on the other end of the spectrum, it's like, well, listen, some of this stuff is like, can just be a conversation, and the person will probably be fine after that. So I think that there's like a wide range of things there, and it's tough world out there. I can imagine as a public figure, a coaching young people, it's not easy. You know what else is an easy, Phil, is keeping people interested in basketball NFTs. So total transition. No, there's something I want to talk about, and we're going to come up because this is going to come up pretty quick. All day we've talked about quite a lot. You follow First Mint, you've gotten all that news lately. But I do want to wrap up the show really quick, talk about basketball season, because you mentioned it earlier. Basketball season's a month away, right? It's coming up. This news cycle is going to ramp up soon. Your favorite guy, LeBron, is going to be in the news soon, talking about whatever they're going to do this season. For something like, I mean, general question to you, right? Like, is a big year. Every year is a big year for the Top Shots and the Sorares of the world as the two like premium, prime, like Web3 NFT products. How do they? What do you think is like success for those two products this year? Is it to bring users back? Is it to grow? Is it just to keep their community happy? What should they be? They're going to roll out their plans really soon. What should they be trying to do?
I think they just need to stay on course with what they're doing right now but we've talked about this. The formula has not been solved yet as to how to onboard these gazillions of NBA fans all over the world who have shown no interest in digital collectibles yet, right? I think what they're doing is good. I think they had a pretty good offseason, to be honest with you, with some of the stuff they did. And I felt like it was a very active, offseason. It feels like the Summer League was ages ago. It really does. Like, I feel like Summer League was so like, long ago. It feels like that was right after the season. And it feels like it was, half a year ago. Yeah. But I think if they stay on track with what they're doing, I think it'll keep the current group of people happy. There seems to be a lot of people still invested in say Top Shot. But it's like everybody else. I don't know what the formula is. I don't know what the approach needs to be to draw in new people. What do you do? I don't know. I've never had that answer. And I think they'll struggle with that. Like, they're pleasing the current crowd right now, but you're dropping these packs for $2.99 on the app or $3.99. And I can guarantee you that, if a casual gets the email from the NBA saying, hey, there's packs for $2 or $3.99, they're probably not clicking on it because it's like, what am I even getting? Like, what does this do for me? You know what I mean? But Top Shot has its core base of people that will always be around, no matter what.
They'll be around, but at the same time, it's like every season, I feel like you're going to dilute them with new supply, right? And I was doing a bit of Twitter writing for First Mint earlier today, and I was just like, okay, it's time to, some of our best Twitter stuff these days is just asking, the audience questions like, hey, what do you think of this? Back in the spring, we're like, what does Top Shot need to get right next season? Blah 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 blah. So we always ask those kinds of things. It's really fun to engage with the community. And what I did is I put up a question that's going to go up tomorrow morning. That's like, how many sets should Top Shot drop in Series 5? Which is obviously like a very like baiting question. But and I tabulated how many sets they dropped in each previous series. And in Series 1, it's 23 sets, 15 sets.
Wow, that's a lot.
8 sets, 18 sets. And Series 4, Phil, is 49 sets.
Oh, man, no.
And not that it's necessarily counted by set, because it again depends how many moments and how many the counts of those moments. But it's like, I remember when they put out the plan for Series 4, and I was like, holy shit, that's so many sets that you're making. That's going to be really hard for people to track these collections. And to me, I'm like, man, I don't even know what they can do. Like, do you go with scarcity of like, okay, there's only 5 sets this year. It's very, very minimal. A couple anthologies. That's it. You go be like, there's going to be another fucking 30 sets this year. Like, what are you actually supposed to do? Right. And I think even for Sorare, it's like once you extract the Sorare NBA numbers from soccer, it's minimal, man. It's 1,000 weekly buyers. It's not very much. And like NBA fantasy is fun, but again, I think jumping into the Sorare and the Rainmakers side of this, it's like, well, is it really that much better than just playing regular DFS? Is it actually better?
That's right.
It's yes, you can own the assets, but simultaneously, isn't that a little bit more complicated than just entering a $2 contest every night? Like, isn't that easier? Right. So I don't know. I am curious. Like, you're right. Both collectibles and like NFT fantasy to me is like, well, what are we supposed to do here? And I do feel like NBA would be prime for a game, right? NFL Rivals, nobody really talks about it that much, but they've been kind of making some headway as a Web3 like mobile game. I've played it a bunch and like it's fun. And I think for Top Shot, we always wanted hardcourt. I don't know if any of these companies are close to making a game, but that's something that it's like I would want. I feel like you need something like that to kind of use these assets and do something with it. Would that make millions of fans turn over to this, or even a couple thousand new ones. I don't know.
No,
You know,
but that's the thing. No one
Yeah.
has figured that out yet, what it will take for that to happen.
Yeah.
They've tried in real life events. They've tried to go to arenas and get people in, and it's still not moving the needle. Like, I'll be honest, if I didn't know anything about NFTs or digital collectibles or anything, and I went to an NFL game and I saw a lineup to get a free scarf if I sign up for the Bills credit card, say, I'd be like, oh, all right, it's not too long.
Maybe.
Cool, I get to take a scarf.
You know, it's a credit card with a giant interest rate.
Yeah, whatever, man. Like, I probably won't even end up keeping it. So who cares? If I see a lineup for something where something's being given away physically, I probably always will line up and be like, you know what, this is worth it. It's cool. But if they're like, hey, come here and you'll get a digital, even for someone like me, I'd be like, oh, I'm not wasting my time with this shit. Like, I want something in my hands. Like, give me something here. You know what I mean? So it's tough. I also think that where Top Shot, 40 something sets is outrageous. It really is. Like, that's unacceptable. The fun part of collecting cards when we were kids, and when we were collecting, you remember those Panini sticker books for the World Cup of Soccer, for the upcoming hockey season? Yeah. The beauty of those was that you could buy, we would buy. I think I spent all my allowance money those years on those Panini stickers, because I kept trying to get the ones I was missing. Mm-hmm. There was never 12 Mario Lemieux in those packs. There was just one, and he was really hard to get. And that was part of the fun experience, is that I would have gazillions of doubles, and I still didn't have Mario Lemieux. So I have to keep trying and keep getting them and keep trading with people who had him to try and get him. And with physical cards, we had that checklist all the time that would come in the pack of cards. And you'd have the special edition sets where you'd have the platinum ones for the rookies, or the platinum ones for the guys that were on the All-Star team last year, things like that. But there was always a limit to that, where there wasn't 40 something sets ever in physical cards. And I think when you there's nothing special about a set when it's one of 40 sets or 49 or whatever the hell it is in one season. There just isn't, right? So I think that's where, again, you're not going to draw in there's not even a physical crowd anymore. That doesn't exist. It's the old school people, and that's it, that are still trying to but there's no one really still buying those things. Like, I don't know anybody that still buys physical cards.
It's not the same.
It's not the same, right?
And it's because they all got oversupplied, right? Right. Like, and with these, it's like, man, I don't know. It's just it's much.
But that was the attraction when we were young, was the fact that you had a checklist and were able to match up what you got in front of that checklist. And when you finished that checklist, you owned a set, and it was a special thing, right?
The problem is that this isn't a product for kids,
right? Exactly.
What worked for kids in the 90s doesn't work for kids today, and this is meant for kids who were kids in the 90s, adults like us. And what works for us is, like, I don't know. I think it has to take the next step. So it's like, I don't know, either you have to look at like what's done well in the past for Top Shot, which has usually been like some kind of fantasy element or whatever they used to do every night, flash challenges. But even then, it's like Sorare isn't doing that well anyways in terms of bringing in new users. So like, what do you actually do? How do you make this interesting? I do think physical, like, stadium presence has always been something, but at the same time, it's, these days people are complaining so much about utility. People complain a lot, and then they did OTM Rumble finally for all day. And it's like, well, if you need all this utility, is the product actually any good? Right? It's like, if you need a bunch of ketchup and relish and mustard, is your hot dog actually tasty? Or if you need like literally buckets of it, I'm not saying that those things don't go.
Who the hell wants a hot dog without that stuff? Come on.
It's like, you can still eat the hot dog on its own, and it's a delicious sausage, right? It's like, that's what makes a good hot dog, is that on its own it's good, and then you can add all those fun things. So all the utility of like tickets to games, you get new moments, like you get signed basketballs, like all this, you can play a little fantasy game, all that kind of stuff. Like, that's the freaking ketchup and the mustard, man. What's the sausage of these things, right? And how are you going to make a tasty sausage people actually want to eat? Can the product stand on its own as a collectible and or a fantasy product? And I don't know that it could, right? So it's like, that's why I always say, it's like, I'm excited to see what these platforms roll out for the season, but I'm skeptical as to whether it can be something that's going to be either truly innovative or actually something that's designed to actually stand alone on its own as something a normal person will see and actually want, right? And I don't know what that is. Maybe it has to be really tied into the league. Maybe you need more commitment from the leagues. We kind of just going to merry-go-round here with the same freaking ideas.
It's the same conversation pretty much every
year that we go through this and that we don't see any progress, then the less optimistic we get. Put it that way.
I agree.
So I think curious to see. We'll chat about it some more as we get closer to the season. So I'm excited for the NBA season, right?
Me too.
Great new lineup, or not great new lineup, but an interesting new lineup, right?
Well, I mean, the World Cup MVP is the new point guard on it.
Yeah,
so
exactly. A bit of a
exciting,
season of transition, right? We'll see what happens. See what happens with Dame if he gets traded or not, or I doubt to the Raptors. But see what happens there. Still a little intrigue and should be a good season. But Phil, we got to wrap up. I got to run.
All right.
Great to see you as usual. Any final words on your anniversaire?
Ballers.
On your jour de naissance?
No, actually, I do want to thank the community because I woke up. I woke up actually pretty early this morning, and I did not. Man, here we go, fading to dark again. Like clouds are moving. I woke up this morning to a gazillion messages, and I'm like, okay, hold on. Does Twitter tell people it's my birthday? Because I have like so many notifications. I didn't even think about it, but the First Mint tweeted out a contest that it was my birthday. Put out an outrageous POAP picture that has now been made the icon on my fantasy football league chat group. Like someone saw this and they're like, Phil, what the hell's going on with you in like the princess picture? And they made it the actual like picture of the league now. Like that's the icon on the group chat. Yeah, it's pretty wild. But no, just a huge thank you to the community and everybody who reached out. I do my best to acknowledge every single one of them. It's really hard when there's that many. I think we broke like the Facebook record this time on X. But just appreciate absolutely everybody. It's always probably one of the greatest feelings when you hear from that many people. Well, I mean, you can be friends with a lot of people, but when you hear from that many people who appreciate you and you maybe have never even heard that from them, I think it goes a long way. So thank you, everybody. I will try and get back to everyone one by one, but it means the world to me. And thank you, LG, for putting that out there. I've had the best First Mint birthdays ever, including the video that we should end.
Video where everybody dogs themselves.
No, the video where we should end this podcast with, from my boy, The Situation, wishing me a happy birthday. Come on. You can't pull it up. You have to go to my Instagram. But you can't get on there. You can't even get on there because it's on there. Anyways, I watched it yesterday and Mike, The Situation from the Jersey Shore, wished me a happy or bonnet anniversary. And he actually did one of the best woes I have ever heard someone not named the real Phil D do. I don't know if you guys taught him how to do it. Probably not, because you probably just put in a written strip. But Mike, The Situation, actually dropped a perfect whoa, like he knew exactly how to do it. So thank you, everybody. Really appreciate it.
You are living your best life, being your best self, and of course, eating your best life with all the funfetti cake that your heart desires. Myself, my family behind the camera, the Jersey Shore squad, we're sending nothing but positive vibes. And if you deserve it, the universe is going to serve it. Don't ever forget, a smooth sea never made a skilled sailor. And if we could say happy birthday in French, well, here we go. Bonnet. Have an awesome birthday situation. Peace.
Where's the whoa? Hold on. Where's the whoa there? I think
it's earlier. He says it. Anyways, Phil, I do have to run. So I'll post that video in the comments. People could check it out.
All right.
Goodbye.
See ya.